So tonight is the first night I have the privilege of actually meeting Amy. I've been admiring her work and her really out-of-the-box thinking that she's had around housing solutions for low-income and homeless people. So I really wanted her to come and speak to the club tonight about her campaign.
I just got to take the mic for a second and say everybody's leaving right now, but you're actually going to miss the best, which was for last. So try to just stick around for another 15 minutes. Give me a chance. Is that okay? All right, thank you, everyone. So I actually requested to be last. That might surprise you if you don't know me. But if you do know me, maybe you've seen me in City Hall at the Board of Supervisors meetings or in the Planning Department meetings, and being there and listening, and then at the end being able to take in what just happened and say, this is what I've heard, and these are the things that I think we need to do based on what I'm hearing and the problem at hand. So I listened tonight, and I hope all of you did too, about what people are saying they're going to do on June 6, 2018, because that is the real question, everyone. Let's go ahead and revolutionize democracy. Tried to do it in 2015 when I ran for mayor against Ed Lee, and I did that because I didn't want to feel despair about the future, and I felt that there were things that Ed Lee was turning his head to and allowing that were impacting our city and our whole global experience in a way that needed to be confronted. Yes. What got me activated in local politics? Does anybody know? No. Chase Bank. It was a Chase Bank. So I graduated from SF State. I got a degree in organizational development there, and I thought I learned about systems thinking. Maybe I learned about systems thinking all the way back growing up in Silicon Valley with my boxy Apple computer in the 80s playing SimCity. Thinking about the whole system and how things are affected and how you do that. So fast forward, I have just graduated from SF State, and I knew that this global financial collapse had happened, and people were talking about these economic times and jobs, jobs, jobs. And so I was fresh out of actually working on the census as well, where we found that we had tens of thousands of empty units in San Francisco in 2010. And I actually worked at the Department of Elections for a while during the primary between Clinton and Obama, so going back. So I graduate, and then I see this sign one day, and it says, just say no to Chase Bank. And there's a Chase Bank that is getting a permit, and it displaced 3 storefronts, wanted to collapse them into one, and 2 longtime local businesses were affected by this. And I quit Chase Bank and went to SF Fire Credit Union because they started charging me for being poor. And I thought, how is this possible after the global financial collapse that I'm being charged for being poor? So I switched to SF Fire Credit Union, and then I saw this sign, just say no to Chase Bank. I learned, and guess what? The zoning code, it's really onerous at first. And it takes a while to wrap your mind around it, but you can learn the zoning code, and you can realize that Ed Lee's departments were bending the law to the point of breaking them. For what corporation? Chase Bank. And I learned about Glass-Steagall, and I learned that the Public Bank of North Dakota was what saved it from being impacted by the global financial collapse. And I knew that John Avalos was going for that, and so I joined John Avalos's mayoral campaign as a volunteer and did what I could to spread the word about we need a public bank. How many people here want a public bank in San Francisco? Something to learn about. There's actually going to be a upcoming hearing tomorrow to talk about it. There was recently a budget and legislative analyst report on that. So there's reasons to do these kinds of things, but I realized it wasn't enough to say no to things, although you do have to resist. And Darwin talks about survival of the most adaptable, but who wants to just survive? How many people feel like they're just surviving and holding on in San Francisco? Not everybody. Some people are living well. Wonderful. We want everybody to live well. Yes. We want everybody to live well. Do you know what affordable housing is? It's 30% of your income. It's not more than that. But so many people are paying more than that. So I got involved in local politics because of the Chase Bank issue, and I realized we have to have a strategic yes. It's not enough to just have a no. So I actually started the Yes in My Backyard movement in San Francisco, believe it or not, back in 2012, but it was for inclusive and culturally enriching and sustainable development. I started a nonprofit called Neighbors Developing Divisadero, and we worked with the community to devise a plan to reactivate the Harding Theater. We reactivated a dormant community garden. And then I realized we don't need just a community garden, we need jobs for this community garden. And I realized it was all about the economy. And I realized when Mark Leno, quite frankly, is talking about fundamental change, but what scared him off from running against Ed Lee in 2015? Yes. And let's just be honest. And let me tell you, there are two guiding values as an individual and a collaborative leader. One is outcomes over egos, always. And one is radical honesty. And so you have to have a tightrope somewhat with that, because you want to tell the truth, but you want to critique when necessary, when harm's being done, but you also always want to work together for the greater good. And you want to give credit where it's due. And that's why I actually went last today, because I want to say that everybody that was up here, it's kind of a dream team, is it not? Do you feel that? And there's also one person missing who's not a Democrat, but I want to say Ellen Lee Zhao. I want to go ahead. There's a lot of differences there. We were actually at Sacramento at the same time, and she was against Costa-Hawkins repeal, and I was for it because I do think that stable housing is a human need for your well-being. But she's coming from the perspective of a property owner, and I realized talking to so many property owners in Sacramento that the small property owners are getting lumped in with the big ones, and we really do need to care for the small property owners in order to make sure that we have housing, and nonprofit housing providers as well. I have an organizational development framework. I know actually how to create programs and go beyond saying platitudes about how we need to end homelessness and build affordable housing. All the ideas that we talked about today, for the most part, would be happening if I had become mayor in 2015. But why didn't I become mayor? Maybe because you look at this packaging and you think, could someone like that actually be a leader in this time? She's a direct service worker. She creates, worked at nonprofits. She does the work. She rolls up her sleeves. She's, but she's not in City Hall. I'm the first generation of my family to go to college. My parents moved to San Jose, and they were a nurse and an appliance salesman. They could buy a house in San Jose in 1977. I went to De Anza Community College. I learned critical thinking. I read Howard Zinn. I started asking the tough questions. And I actually believe in this. I actually believe that it's possible to become the leaders that we've been waiting for when City Hall is not cutting the mustard. And guess what? Jane Kim says she wants to increase money for street sweeping. Oh my God. Do you know what the budget has increased in DPW? It went from $3 million in 2015, and they tripled it just to clean up encampments. I've been doing the work on the ground with encampment residents, neighbors, small business owners, and direct service workers. Just like when I worked at the Santa Cruz AIDS Project and I learned about HIV and the whole system of the body through HIV as the crisis point, I have learned how to heal this whole city's system through working on the ground with its biggest crisis, which is homeless encampments. And the fact that we allow people to be on a way, they're on the ground. I've been developing the bottom rung that everybody can come up a big major step. But you know why it's not happening? Because everybody at City Hall, and I'm just gonna tell it like it is, London Breed, Jane Kim, Mark Leno, Angela Alioto, all of these people I have tried to work with, Mark Farrell, Jeff Sheehy, I have bent over backwards, Ed Lee. I have a model, I have a system and a plan for how we can work together to heal this crisis joyfully. I have a background in mental health and transitional housing and intentional healing communities. I can do this for you. I will do it for you for free. Let me help my city. And guess what? They've all said no. Why? Are you all frustrated with the encampment crisis on the streets? Yes. Well, do you know what the obstacle has been? Ed Lee's administration. And Jane Kim would want to do more, but she couldn't really push back against Ed Lee. Neither could Hillary Ronen. Nobody could really push back against that. And that's going to happen right now with Mark Farrell too. But we can change all that. right now. We can say all 4 people that were up here and myself and Ellen, because Ellen represents a lot of small property owners in Chinatown, and we know how we can reactivate those units. And London Breed, oh my goodness, were you there when I was there with David Campos for the Planning Commission? They didn't, and Christine Johnson and all these people, they didn't allow common sense regulations about having to list your permit number for Airbnb. And then, so just 4,000 units just came back on the market. Ed Lee turned his head to Uber and Airbnb rather than treat this like a system. This is Sim City gone wrong.
Yes.
And it's Francis of Assisi gone wrong.
Yep.
And guess what? I love Angela Aliota's chutzpah. And I really do. And I do feel like we are a dream team for San Francisco, but we do need maybe Kimberly Alvarenga and Francisco Herrera in the mix too, because we need to represent our Latino brothers and sisters as well. But let's have a dream team thinking about what are we going to do on June 6th. We have from June 6th to December 2020. I have a plan.
Great.
It's right here.
Excellent. So, Amy, I've asked every candidate tonight. I think you've been here. So, you know
Discrimination! I am one of the candidates. I'm not invited.
You're not a Democrat, Ellen.
It is an open public space. It is
we'll talk to you later.
discrimination. It's not acceptable. I am a social worker.
Can I have my questions now? Can I have my questions?
Thank you.
I gave you a little space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you. Sorry. Mayor Ed Lee, before he passed away, the 5,000 unit question. Go right ahead. Yeah.
The 5,000 unit question, ladies and gentlemen. How is she going to answer this one? So guess what? Newsflash. Do you know how many units are already entitled in the pipeline right now? Someone take a guess.
30,000.
It's more. It's 22,000 are entitled, and then that doesn't even include Park Merced or Treasure Island or the Bayview. You know, so we already have that plan. It wasn't a very bold thing for Ed Lee to say, I'm going to do 30,000 units, because they were already in the pipeline. Come on. So but you know what I was talking about back in 2015, and you should look it up on YouTube. Do me a favor, if you never heard of me in 2015, go ahead and berate your local media. But go on YouTube, and I have a whole hour where I talk about solutions to the affordability crisis and ideas for what we can do, which includes what London Breed talked about, which was modular housing.
Yes.
I was talking about that back then. I also came up with a program that you're all gonna love and you wish you'd heard of. So what it is that there's 37,000 parcels in San Francisco that can have an additional dwelling unit. Scott Wiener led the way on that, and he did that in District 8, then Christensen did it in 3, and then this last summer it opened up the whole city so that you go from RH1, which just allows you 1 kitchen, to RH2 if you do an additional dwelling unit. You know what's great about that? How much does it cost to build a new market rate development unit in a big high rise? About 700,000, 500 to 700,000. You know what it is for an ADU? It's only up to 200,000, and it could be less than that. And so what we can do is we can connect the dots, which is what I love to do. We can work with the building trades. What's that? We can. An additional dwelling unit. So that means there's 37,000 parcels throughout San Francisco that can have 1 or more unit added to it, and they cost less to build, and so it can be a distributed effort.